Ready.
Use the force, Sonny.
Or don't.
Guys, welcome back to another... or don't. Yeah. Welcome back to another installment of Run It Back. We're starting with... we finished all the MCU movies. Now we're going one by one through the Star Wars films. And we're starting with the thing that started a galaxy far, far away. A New Hope.
That was Jurassic
Let's
Park.
set the stage.
I tried to do the theme song and
He said,
and I just saw the words going up. It's like T-Rex. There we go. Okay.
Welcome to Run It Back, Jurassic Park.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
we could do those too.
Sonny is here.
Hey.
Corn Dog Paul's here.
Hey.
So, Marcus. Hi, Marcus.
Hi.
We're gonna make like a sandwich or something. You said like corn dog, Paul, and then you went over there and
Paul, I was gonna say, yeah.
I don't know when I transformed into corn dog Paul, but yeah, you know, whatever.
life happens.
Yeah,
Life
it
comes
does.
at you hard.
It does.
It just happened.
I don't know
Comes
what
at you
Quan
really
said, but
hard.
it sounded mean, so I'm not
Really
going to
hard and
ask
fast.
Because you're corny.
Oh,
Wow, you're corny. Wow.
Got him. All right,
There
I'm
you
just going
go.
to go home.
Guys, this movie is old, over 40 years old.
Yes.
But I think a lot of it still holds up as far as
Right.
it set the standard for what sci-fi films were trying to do going forward.
Right.
What are some of your thoughts of the original Star Wars film, Sonny?
You know, when I first saw it, I think being young and then seeing all the prequel stuff, I was like, "Oh, this is like there's puppets everywhere, and you know, it's not good." And then I got older, and I could have a different type of respect for all the OG movies.
So you didn't like him at first?
No, I didn't. I was one of those. I mean, for me, it wasn't my time, so I respected the other ones in a different manner. Now I go back and I'm like, those movies are trash, and then I'm like, the OG ones are where it's at. Usually when it kind of comes into conversation, but like you said, I think it was groundbreaking. I think what they were doing for sci-fi was just an incredible leap, and I mean, I wish I was around for those times to see like, you know, ticket sales and movies and all that kind of stuff.
I think it was the highest grossing movie for a
while,
Yeah.
right? The new ones didn't do that, right?
The first two did.
Did they?
The Last Jedi and Force Awakens is like the 5th biggest movie ever.
Okay.
Last
See?
Jedi has made $1 billion, and then Rise of Skywalker did okay.
Okay.
Solo not so much.
No.
And Rogue One not so much. Solo
Critically wise,
Solo. Sorry to get on this tangent. Solo
go on the
flopping is why they haven't made any more Star Wars movies. That's literally they have said that because Solo did bad.
Interesting.
Which they're saying, oh, well, I guess Star Wars movies don't go. Or the Han Solo movie isn't what was going to do well.
Right.
They're
And that
taking
was
a
my
while.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
should have done.
anyways,
They
I
should have done.
digress.
They should have done an Obi-Wan movie.
I agree.
If they had a choice between Solo or Obi-Wan. they should have done
Oh
Obi-Wan.
my God, yeah.
That would've
I
been
think
a
it
lot
would have.
better.
I think what, even when I think about going back and the writing back in the day, super dope. I think the actors, just to see,
Alec Guinness,
dude, like it does feel iconic when you go back to look at them now. You know what I mean?
right.
I think personally for me, when I first saw them, I just was, I don't know, I not bored, or maybe I wasn't in that era to think of something so epic. And now when I'm older and I go back to think about it, I'm like, okay, this is
How old were you when you first watched it? The original trilogy.
the original one. I was probably like 14.
So you probably had it in your head
that's-
that the prequels were the best, and you were like,
I'm like,
I
dude,
want them to be
Darth
better.
Maul's
I'm
the
right
coolest
there
guy
with him.
ever,
Yeah.
and like these lightsabers look way cooler than what they did before, and you can
Right.
tell that these are puppets, and then now I'm like, okay, like
Yeah.
we get like Book of Boba Fett, and I'm like, oh, we're still good. You know what I mean? So
man.
I don't know. I think nowadays I have a lot more respect for the original as the OG of what these set the platform for anything that we're getting nowadays. So it's very interesting to see the dynamic of watching something young and watching it when you're older, and that's something
I
that's
agree.
really cool about these original movies where you can do that. You know?
Yeah, you're factoring in for like inflation for the original Star Wars film.
Yeah.
You have no idea how much money it would make if it came out now.
Right.
Back then, the tickets were like $4.
Yeah.
And,
See a movie
and
at
that's
night.
another thing that I would like to
I
think,
mean,
like
compared to now.
how much did the original Star Wars cost to make versus
Right.
what it would cost to make Rise of Skywalker?
I'd
you know
bet
what
you
I mean?
I'm
just
gonna
about
look that up right
anything
now. Stand
that
by.
outside of Gone with the Wind, A New Hope is probably the highest grossing movie adjusted for inflation. I would be, I bet it's right up there with Gone with the Wind for that.
That's insane to think about, man. Like real talk. I'm just to compare the first movie versus the last one that just came out. and what time really does, and what, like you said, inflation, or how much it costs to put an actor into a new movie versus how much it would have for all these actors that are just kind of coming out.
If you had to guess,
how much did it cost?
what
to make
was the budget for the original Star Wars? If you had to guess,
35 mil is my guess.
less,
Wow, 25.
less,
Wow, $15 million.
less,
That's crazy.
9.
$11 million.
Wow.
How much did it make?
It was a
Is there
private
like
loan.
It
basically.
grossed $775 million.
Whoa,
It almost made $1 billion in 1979.
that's and those are crazy numbers. I mean, how much do you think the last? What was the last big Star Wars? Not like
The Rise of Skywalker probably made about $1 billion.
How much do you think that cost to make?
At least 200 million.
Right, with actors, CG, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And that's insane to even talk about right there.
Which
you
would think it would be less, because back then you had to actually fly these actors to Tunisia to film those desert scenes.
Correct.
You actually had to pay them.
That's not a
They had
studio that they could
unions.
just use.
Right. They had a stronger union, obviously, because that's part of what happened with, in the 90s when we had all these reality TV shows. A lot of the writers got fired and got, their union represented them poorly and all that kind of stuff. So you had all these other things, these logistical things that costed money versus, a bunch of nerds in a room on a laptop.
Yeah.
Green screening.
Yeah.
If you're watching that making of thing they did on the Plus, I mean, he was basically shooting the movie at Pinewood Studios in London, and they were doing all the visual effects in California,
Right.
And they came together, and he gave them all these. He gave them a checklist of these deadlines. Watch it; it's like a 5 or 6 episode thing. It talks about the original Star Wars trilogy, how they break it all down. Is like he came in with this list of stuff that he wanted them to have done,
Right.
and it was like. They did like a third of it. And he was like losing his mind. He goes, "I'm running out of money. The studio doesn't want to put the movie out. We're in trouble. We have a date to put the movie out. Like this has got to happen." It came out like Memorial Day.
Oh my God!
In the
Like
summer
Memorial
of
Day,
77. It's like the
Memorial
first
Day
movie to
weekend
come out.
drop.
It's like-
Everyone's
It's
on
a big
vacation.
deal. Rise of Skywalker, by the way, their budget was estimated to be $320 million,
Jeez.
and it made $1 billion.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's still, that's a good,
That's
significant
a great profit, but I mean, like to think about like what they did in the first one.
Oh, it's not even
to
close.
make.
Oh no, it's
that.
not. It's not comparable.
That is insane.
Yeah,
Those are
it's
insane numbers.
Not even close.
That's crazy.
I'd be willing to bet the only 2 actors on this first movie that made a decent chunk of change were Guinness and Ford. Because I know Ford didn't want to do it, but George Lucas liked him from American Graffiti. And so he was like, "Harrison, can you do this?" I think it might have even been a favor. There's a story behind when he came in. And then Alec Guinness was a big actor at the time.
He was up and coming at the time, so Ford really didn't have much of a choice. He had to kind of do some stuff.
believe-
He was a
still-
carpenter. He
was
worked.
young
He
and
was
up
a
and
union
coming.
carpenter.
And that was before.
So he
that
had
was
to shut up and do it.
Yeah.
He was well, I think George asked him to do a favor or something, but he was a carpenter, and then he got brought on to American Graffiti, and I think George paid him pretty well to be a part of Star Wars because he didn't want to be. And then, like I said, Alec Guinness was Alec Guinness at the time. I don't know who to compare him to nowadays, but he was a big actor.
He was the
a
guy.
respectable
Yeah.
actor.
Yeah, he was the guy.
Richard
And
Harris.
Like Lizzo, probably.
Right, like Lizzo. And Alec Guinness,
Jack Black, Lizzo.
notoriously, before he died, hated talking about Star Wars. It annoyed the hell out of him, even more so than Harrison Ford. For anyone to bring it up to talk to him about it, he did not. He did not like it. He was like, he hated that's what he was known for.
That's terrible because he had a storied career, just like Richard Harris, who was the original Dumbledore.
Oh my God.
He's had a storied career
And he's
too.
Dumbledore.
And he's Dumbledore to a lot of the younger
Yeah.
generation.
Yeah. I mean, but that Dumbledore money probably, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Lined
The
up
Dumbledore money
good.
did.
Yeah,
Probably lined up crazy, you know?
Was Darth Vader? You think Darth Vader probably goes down in pop culture as like one of the greatest movie villains?
The best.
I would
In my
say
opinion, yes.
number one.
Frankenstein's monster.
Absolutely
kind of thing.
terrifying. You can't see his face. He uses the Force. You don't know if he's getting ready to choke you or not.
Red
You don't-
lightsaber.
Red light. I mean, he has the voice, of course.
Terrifying.
He's absolutely an imposing figure.
Absolutely.
I mean, just look at the end scene of Rogue One, and then
man.
that is iconic now.
Yeah.
And they added that after the fact, right?
Right.
Like,
it was
after the movie.
like the last scene.
Didn't they? Yeah, they had to add like a couple minutes
Yeah.
or whatever to hit the
Nuts.
cut.
Absolutely nuts.
And like I've said this a couple times, like the hallway scenes are becoming like a thing in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And like seeing that, I think it didn't translate until afterwards. Again, watching something as an adult, going back and like,
Well,
oh damn, he's really badass, dude.
I
That's
think
kinda
there's
crazy.
a perfect scene to kind of illustrate what you're talking about is when you're a kid and you watch the Darth Vader Obi-Wan fight in A New Hope. You go, that was lame. They just slapped them together a couple times. And then
Right.
when you're an adult, you realize that's not what it's about.
Right.
That is not what that scene is
No.
about. It's two characters who have this history with each other that you don't know, but you can feel it.
Yeah.
You can
Right.
feel it in what they're saying together.
Yeah.
You see this terrifying force in Darth Vader, but you see Obi-Wan stand up to him.
Yeah.
And that builds Obi-Wan as a character, Luke's love for him, Luke's hatred of Darth Vader,
Yeah.
and you see Darth Vader take him out. And there's so much more to that than the lightsaber. The scene wasn't about the lightsabers. It was
Right.
cool to see them, but it was not the point.
Right.
And I think as a kid, you see that, and you watch Yoda flip around in the prequels, and you're like,
Right.
oh, that's so much cooler.
Yeah, dude.
But there's no,
exactly me at 14.
there's no
dude.
like, there's no weight there. Like, what is that fight about?
Right.
Nothing.
Nothing at all.
And in the original trilogy, that fight in particular, it's about so much about Luke's journey to try to get Darth Vader, which eventually leads to, in the next film we'll talk about in next week, is the greatest reveal in cinema history, and so on. So that moment alone sets up so much
Yeah,
for the rest of the series
Agreed.
and the rest of pop culture.
No, for sure.
I think the 20th Century Fox too. They really wanted to fast track a sequel. I mean, they had been done with like post production, and they had already like they got a ridiculous like reception, and people responding to the movie like so positively. They're like, you got to go back to work. You got to work on another sequel, whatever. Like it was like kind of fast tracked, and they had like makeshift studios working on multiple things, like all of the snow stuff for Hoth. I mean, you just got to go and watch the making of this stuff. I mean, it's ridiculous how they fast tracked it.
It's like Marcus was saying, there's so much more. I think like time and effort. I don't know if it's more, but I think they actually had to go to certain places, or they had to like freelance a studio to make this. It's
you
not
had
like
to plan.
one studio that can
Well,
make snow, desert.
Lucas is on record as saying after he filmed in the desert for the original trilogy, part of the reason the prequels are all on sound stages, he said he would never go back.
Yes.
He said he hated it so much he would not go back.
And
It
I mean, and
drove
yeah,
him nuts.
it's
the monsters.
extremely hot, and like all of these characters are in like robes and hoods and all this kind of stuff. It does make it really difficult, and that really does show like how much it really took to make this
Yeah.
movie. Like nowadays, you can get a soundstage, and you can get some really good CG people and a great actor and make a sci-fi movie. Like
You know what this
Within- with
movie
nothing.
does so well? It
excuse me.
it keeps in line with the number one rule of cinema. Show, don't tell.
Yeah.
They don't tell you that Luke is lonely, that he's heartbroken, that he's yearning for more.
Yeah.
What did they do? They have his aunt and uncle tell him he can't do something, and he runs up to the top step with the sun rising, and he just stares longingly while the wind's blowing in his hair. You know in that moment that kid, Luke, is destined for something more and wants something more.
Yeah.
And what the problem with the prequels is, they're not. They wouldn't do that. They would tell you that Anakin's angsty. They'll tell you
Yeah.
that he's upset. They'll tell you that he's sad, but they
Somewhat
never
like life,
show
actually. Yeah, life is the aunt and uncle, and I'm running up to the top stair,
Right.
looking for something else.
And it's
Like,
just-
you are.
I know I'm better.
It's
than
shot
where I'm
so
at right
well, and guys like Lawrence Kasdan, who did such a great job with helping with the script, and Christopher McQuarrie, whose sets have influenced sci-fi for however long.
Yeah,
you
forever.
see,
Till this day,
they're
dude.
still taking stuff from his art and putting it into the video games in this, because he
Yep.
did so much storyboarding stuff for everything
Yeah.
that he built a lot of what makes Star Wars great. And there's just so many incredible people involved. There's some other people that we'll talk about when we get to the other sequels and things like that. And Star Wars just always pioneered. Even though I don't like the prequels, they pioneered with the prequels and stuff like that. But this movie is what started it all.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about seeing something that lasts as long as Star Wars, especially in movies and TV shows and video games, is being able to see the origin and to see like the original. If it came out 50, 60, 70 years ago, it's still pioneering. It still has its space in what we're doing to this day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So as far back as it was, and now that I get to appreciate it as an adult, it still is a giant mountain of a movie, because it's still shining and it's still
Even still.
Yeah, even still, you know what I mean? So it's great. It's
I love
crazy to be a part of that.
I love that contrast, though, Sonny, of this, them defining and showing you, like you're saying, show, don't tell. Like they've showed the Empire.
Yeah.
And how sleek all the vehicles were.
Yeah,
And
dude.
how like very cold and whatever. And then that was like their idea going into it when they're building these ships and stuff. Because George Lucas he had loose ideas, but he just kind of trusted their judgment.
Yeah.
And all the nerds in the cave, just like, you guys kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
And they wanted to make all of the Rebel vehicles, the X-Wings, the Millennium Falcon. They wanted everything to look like just a space hot rod with stuff thrown together. They were literally taking random model pieces and gluing them to the top of the Millennium Falcon. And like for the Star Destroyers, they're just like big, large, sleek. They're putting giant pieces of other models together to make the things look huge and intimidating. Right. How they shot the stuff to make these films is just, it sets itself apart for just movie making, and not just the fact that the movies were so good, but just for filmmaking. Everybody has tried to duplicate that.
Oh my God,
for decades, and they can't.
Yeah, you know, and to kind of think about like how many different Star Wars, Star Trek, Dune, like whatever, like even nowadays there's so many different like so out there space sci-fi movies that, you know, you go back to the original and you're like, you still can't do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's crazy. Like any origin story, if it's good or bad, it's going to be the trailblazer for whatever happens, you know, moving forward.
I'm really glad they remade Dune.
you
That's
know-
just a side. That's
Yeah, me too.
We just got some stuff from Dune today, actually.
You know, and you know what's really a shame is that George Lucas himself couldn't see this movie for what it was.
Yeah.
And I mean, people's argument is it's his, so he'll do what he wants. But
Right.
you go back and you can't find the original versions of these movies anymore
No.
because he wanted to add CGI. There's like 5 iterations of who shoots first with Solo and Greedo, and there's all these CGI
like leaving
animals.
it alone. You mean
Right, just let it be. Let it live as it is. And that's with saying that. There are a few updates that I think were necessary, but he just tried to do too much with it when remastering it. Where there's like, I think one of the things I do like that they changed with the remaster is the original hologram of the Emperor is like a weird mess of makeup in the original.
Right,
And
right.
they reshot it with Ian McDermott, who does
Right.
play him in the original trilogy too. And so it worked better. Little things like that, little updates work. But throwing in a CGI alien horse when Obi-Wan and Luke are driving into Tashi Station, why?
Right.
Just for the fact of CG.
Right.
I guess.
Just
yeah.
for the
Why?
fact of.
I kind of like the human actor that played Jabba the Hutt.
Me too.
There's a clip that I shared a long time ago where like they did a frame by frame comparison, split screen of what the movie was and the human actor that Harrison Ford was interacting with as Jabba the Hutt. You know, that famous scene where like in the new update he steps over him and
He, like,
steps
glitches
on,
over him?
Yeah, right. And so
Because it
that
wasn't actually there.
right.
Well, that's the
It was
thing.
fun.
You have an actor that's delivering lines or having a conversation with a box versus like a dude.
You
You know
actor
what I mean?
standing in, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man. Stuff we can't get nowadays. Man.
It's a great movie. It's set itself apart, I think, against anything other sci-fi related thing.
Of course.
It's because it really does. The movie really has kind of like stood the test of time.
Yeah.
I mean, because you automatically, anything that's Star Wars, you automatically go to the source material.
Have to.
It was a
And-
great first movie.
It was.
It
a
was.
great, for this
And
franchise.
First and foremost, it wasn't an adaptation of something.
Yes.
Obviously,
No,
it has
true.
inspirations. Everything has inspirations.
Sure,
but
sure.
it was an original screenplay for film.
Yeah.
It wasn't the adaptation of a book. It wasn't this, that, or the other thing. It was his own incredible idea that came to film first.
Yeah, that's why it gets way more appreciated nowadays because, you know, everything has the book or the movie
Everything's
or the
an
comic or the
IP.
thing that you can go back and
Even
compare
Star
it
Wars
to.
now.
Right.
You know what I mean? So this coming out when it did was just so original, and you can definitely get that from the storytelling, which is amazing.
So, guys, we're going to be going one by one through all of the Star Wars films in order of release. I think we'll do like chronologically. We're not going to be doing like, obviously, we're not doing episodically because we just started with number 4. But in the coming weeks, we're going to have Empire Strikes Back or Run It Back. That'll be the next one we go over. It might arguably be one of the better sequels of all time. I don't know. We're going to talk
movies
about
of all
that.
time, yeah.
I mean, best movies of all time. But we'll be talking about that soon. We appreciate you guys taking the time to check us out tonight. And thank you guys
You're so
for
welcome.
being nostalgic about all things Star Wars.
8 out of 10.
Oh,
It's
oh,
good. Oh yeah, Sonny.
Oh, well, 8 out of 10. What would you give it, boys?
Yeah, 8 out of 10.
Versus First watch versus now. Does that
It's
change?
still like I think it's still like an 8 out of 10.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's solid. What
I
about you?
watched it before I watched the prequels, so I
that's good.
was in a different.
I'm probably a little lower because it's a little on the slower end for me. So I'll probably do 7.5.
Okay.
That's still good though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably do 7.5 as well.
Okay.
There you go.
I like it.
Yeah.
Guys, we will talk to you soon. Have a great evening. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing. We really would appreciate it.
And happy May the 4th. Happy Star Wars Day.
And may the 4th be with you. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great evening.